I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I'm just going to let everyone know this will be an interesting recap episode. There were times where I was like, should I even talk about this week? And I'm like, no, I think that we need to talk about this week. But I think that the overall sentiment of how we felt about the episode was different than most episodes this season. So, it's somebody that I, talk to on a regular basis. A fan said that this was by far the lowest point of the season. And I can't disagree. I feel like it definitely was.
Yeah, it was an overall interesting episode to say the least, but there was a lot to unpack for sure.
There was, and BattleBots was so kind to let us get the drama out of the way with the first match, at least the biggest part of the drama. Obviously Riptide versus Captain Shredderator. I don't think anybody's surprised about that, but I want to preface my comments by saying anybody that knows me or has watched this for any length of time, I don't want anybody to be like, oh, well, you can't deal with hardcore robot fights. I love aggression. There is a reason why my two favorite sports are BattleBots and hockey. I like aggression. My favorite robot is Minotaur. Come on. I like seeing a really good fight, but there is a difference between a really good, aggressive, destructive fight and not having good sportsmanship. And there is a level of decorum and respect in BattleBots, and all of the veterans know this. I think the vast majority of the teams kind of abide by this, and that was the big thing, in this fight that I think a lot of people took away from it. I mean, obviously, Riptide is a beast. It is a very strong, destructive machine. But Captain Shredderator, no shade to them, but I mean, they don't have the best win-loss record. And, when I'm watching that match and they're on their head, they don't have a self-righter. There's nothing they're going to be able to do. Somebody please make an argument to tell me that there's anything that they could have done at that point. There's not. So there is no reason at that point to continue attacking them other than just to be not nice. That's all there is to it. Ashley, what do you think?
As someone who's been in a similar position where your robot is absolutely demolished, and we've gotten the respect at Norwalk where people have asked, are you good? Are you okay? Did you tap? We've had it happen. A Emulsifier did it to us, and they asked us after the match. They're like, you guys didn't tap, right? And we were like, no. I said, everything you did was fair. You respected us. We appreciate it. Thank you for, killing our robot. That's obviously what we love to see. And that's why we didn't tap. But there's definitely a level and an extremity. And there were definitely, in my opinion, lines that were crossed, and that just doesn't need to happen. And you feel so hard for Captain Shredderator, especially to be such a veteran in the sport and to obviously know that he can't go anywhere once he's on his head. Nobody wants to see that. Okay, I'm sure somebody wants to see that, but I don't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, this I saw a lot of the comments about this is gladiator sport and this is the object is to battle and destroy. No, it's not. It's not like Robot Wars, where you had the house bot completely destroying the bot. Everybody has a set expectation of what's going to happen, and that doesn't mean your robot's not going to get destroyed. I mean, there's plenty of matches that I could bring up that I loved, Minotaur versus Bronco. Minotaur absolutely eviscerated Bronco, or Cobalt versus Ghost Raptor. Those are some of my favorite matches. I loved them. But everything that was done by the teams in those matches was per that kind of code of respect and by the book and stuff, and nobody's feelings were hurt. So it's just there's a difference between the two things. And it's, you know, just for any fans that are like, even, you know, I understand, you know, fans don't have necessarily the perspective that I do as someone who's talked to a lot of builders or been in the pits, or that Ashley does as a builder. You know, I get that, but I promise you, there are things that you didn't see on TV or may not be aware of that like factor into why I feel the way that I do, or why Ashley feels the way that she does. So just there's more to it than just that match as a singular thing. So, you know, it's rough to see. I wish that it wouldn't have been named the fight of the week. I think that further like encourages that's behavior that should be emulated, and like I don't like it. It just is yuck to me. So yeah. And that's all that I'm going to say about that.
We'll leave it right there.
We'll move on to other things. You know, so we had Mammoth versus Deathroll. Obviously, again, speaking of destruction, because Deathroll is very good at it. You know, I'm so happy that, you know, from that first match where they kind of got pretty walloped, that they've been able to come back and have success. You know, kind of sad to see it against Mammoth, because Mammoth has taken their share of licks this season. But I mean, I would imagine it would be hard for Mammoth to deal with that weapon, and Deathroll was able to kind of maneuver around and hit the right spots, and, you know, get them, and then go after that wheel, and, you know, get it where they couldn't move. And again, like, okay, the wheel's hanging off. Deathroll was like, okay, cool, like, Mammoth's not going to do anything else, so why do I need to continue? But yeah, I thought that was a great match.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the advantage that Mammoth had in this match was that Deathroll was low enough that they were never going to get to the weapon chain. So the weapon was always going to keep moving, which was totally cool. And you did see Mammoth get one good pop underneath it. But unfortunately, like, when you're up against a vert and your wheels are out in the open, you know everyone's going for that because it's going to kill your mobility as quick as it possibly can. But hopefully, that being said, Mammoth doesn't take a ton of damage, so going into their next fight, it's not super bad for them, hopefully.
Yes, exactly. And so we went from that to Banshee versus Emulsifier. So there were some interesting things in this one. I was really happy, obviously, to see Emulsifier get a win. I thought that was great because they've done what I felt like is really well, but just like stuff happening and them not winning. So I was really happy to see that happen. It, you know, it's one of those, like, it kind of sucked because obviously you could tell that like Banshee wasn't really full power, like their flipper wasn't really going well, and you know, that kind of stinks. But I think like this was a good example to use of a situation where like Banshee clearly wasn't moving. And I know, like, because there's that whole thing too, like, you know, Eric Wrigley did like say afterwards in like forums and things like that, like, hey, I was getting a little bit too excited about things, and like he apologized for kind of like pushing, hit him. Matt chose not to hit them again, which is exactly what you do. Like, Banshee's not moving, there's no reason to go further than that. So he did the right thing. Banshee got counted out, you know, and I thought it was just a good, clean match.
Yeah, as somebody who's fought in a little Emulsifier, it was so exciting to see the 250 finally up, doing exactly what it's intended to do, and it's taking those hits, and it's popping off the top plate, and it's really taking chunks into the armor. I was so excited that they finally got a win. It was so good to see, and I am super glad that Matt was in control, did what he needed to do, and absolutely knew at what point the match was over and knew that he had that win. And even after you feel like you've had the win, if you keep going, you're only making yourself eligible to more damage. So it's like, why are you going to keep doing that? And the way the match played out was absolutely fantastic. And I can't wait to see Emulsifier Emulsifier keep going and hopefully get another win under their belt.
Yes, absolutely. I really like, you can tell how stressful I think the season has been for that team as a whole, because going into that match, they have 2 winless robots, and that's not something that Bots FC is used to having. So it's one of those, like, I understand in that situation, emotions running high and, being frustrated with the way that the season has gone. So, that's a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah, that's definitely like a passion-filled situation, and like you just want your team to do well and like really show what you're capable of.
Yes, exactly. So then we go from that to Copperhead versus Kraken. And, again, like the interesting thing for me is that in this episode, following that first match, there were so many examples of what to do, like, and like an example of, hey, this bot is really destructive and is kicking butt and taking names, but they're doing it in the right way. And Copperhead definitely exemplifies that. I mean, they just have been wrecking people this year. And like, they went after the mini bot, but again, like, it was, it was okay. Like,
poor Narwhal.
poor Wally, poor Wally. But yeah, I mean, at least I will say that Kraken was moving better. I think that they were able to fix some of the issues, and knowing what I know about the whole situation, that Copperhead gave them the time to kind of work on some things that were going on with Kraken to make it in the best shape that it could be for that match. But like, it was good. Sad for Kraken again, but like Copperhead is truly a beast this season, just an absolute beast.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. I love Luke and Chad and Lindsay and everybody. Like, they're obviously super close to our heart and Norwalk. And I just want to take 30 seconds to talk about how freaking adorable Max is, because even on the entrance, you can tell him that I'm like standing behind Farouk, and they introduce Kraken, and Max goes, yeah. I was like absolutely dying. And then at the end of the match, when he's like, that little boy is the cutest, and I love him, and he just brings so much joy to my screen every single time he's on it. So like, Chad, thank you for like letting me hang with Max, because he's just the best. But yeah, Copperhead is absolutely dominating this season. You love to see it. Everybody on that team works so hard. They've really dialed it in. That weapon and drive are just hitting hard and taking hits, and it was absolutely incredible to see. Like, I love that they're sitting at 3-0.
Yes. Noting though that their last fight is not going to be a picnic, because they will be fighting Ripperoni.
I'm actually so excited for that match. I cannot wait to see it. That's like a hard one for my heart, but like a big one for like my love of robot fighting.
Yes, exactly. So we shall see. That's honestly, like, I'm looking forward to that more than quite a few matches this season, especially after like what's happened so far. It should be a good one.
Definitely, I can't wait.
Yes. So then we had a match that was one of the 3 challenges of the night, and it's so interesting because like, I realize the matches may be a little bit out of order, but we had talked about this last week where I said, now that, Bunny's done a challenge and been successful, in her appeal, that like a bunch of other people are going to be like, hey, why not? Like, what do I have to lose? And that's kind of what we saw this week with a number of appeals. None of them were successful, but, still, like, when you're into the season and it's your third match and you're like that late in the game and you're behind the 8 ball, like, why not?
Exactly.
So Shatter versus Horizon, it was a really interesting match for me. I was happy to see Horizon actually functioning along the lines of what you expect to see from them and what you want to see from them. Like that was kind of exciting to see it actually working the way that it's intended to work. It was unfortunate that it was at Shatter's expense, but there was just a lot of little things in that match. For example, with Shatter deciding to just like keep going with the hammer when there's nothing to hit. And I wasn't sure if that was the best strategy, because from a judge's perspective, they're just looking at you flailing around, not really trying to aim at a target. It's showing that your weapon's working, sure, but I wondered if that detracted from points or it was just very interesting. Now, I will say that based on what I saw, I didn't expect them to overturn it, because I felt that Horizon had done enough there to win the match. Certainly on terms of damage, that from what it looked like to me. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when he was having Eric continually hit the weapon, and I was like trying to look, and I watched it a couple times to try to figure out, I think there was something stuck in the wheel, and it was hurting his directional drive, like because he has those Omni wheels. So I think there was something stuck, because at some point you can kind of see something small come flying back out of the robot, and I'm like, I have a feeling that's why they were like, he was like, hit it, because he was trying to shake something loose. But yeah, I was super excited to see Horizon finally up and running and getting both of those blades spinning as they were intended. They pop Shatter up onto the deck, and like obviously like they were all able to get down, but Horizon was actually like had a really good showing in this match, I felt like, and it was really, really cool to see like, okay, that's totally how that's intended to move and work, and it was awesome.
Yes. The only thing that I was like, they had the mini bot in there, and I was like, I don't know, in this match, I feel like that mini bot's actually getting in the way, and I probably wouldn't have even used it. But you never know. It's I guess it's worth trying.
There was definitely one time they ran into the mini bot, and I was like, oh, I don't think that was the purpose of that. Like,
no, exactly.
That didn't go as well.
Against a bot like Shatter, I don't think it's really going to be super effective in that situation. But I mean, they did get the win. They made the appeal. It didn't end up working out, and like that's a rough one for Shatter, real rough. But I guess you just you learn from it and move on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how their last fight stacks out, because they have everything to lose at that point, I think, unfortunately, which stinks to see. You don't ever want to see that team in that position, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we went into Ominous versus Shred It Bro. I'm going to preface this by saying I understand this was not an exciting match. We've had several matches throughout the season where it wasn't super exciting. I think the big issue for me in this match was this entire season, in any of these matches that were kind of like, they have never cut in with previews for another fight. Like before the season, they were all like, we're going to show every fight and stuff like that. But I mean, like, it from a production standpoint, they knew how all of these fights looked ahead of time, and for me, if they were going to do that for any fight, it should have been for every fight that was this way, not just all of a sudden doing this for a specific fight. And like normally I'm okay with like editing stuff, but this time I was really unhappy. I mean, I honestly would have rather it just been like a show, like 30 seconds of highlights from it and say who won and then have it be on YouTube than do that. It felt a lot more like rude and disrespectful to the two teams that were involved in the fight.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Like every other episode, like this is the 10th episode. Every other episode, they've had that break in time for the matchup build up for the main event. It doesn't need to be like those competitors work so hard and deserve that time. Like you don't do that, in my opinion. And it was like, especially for me, because I'm close with that team, like so close with that team. Like there's family on that team. Like I was so mad, and I literally texted one of my friends and I was like, is this a joke? Like, that's not fair. Like, those guys and girls out there work so hard. Like, they absolutely do not deserve that, no matter how you feel about how that 3 minutes went.
Yes. I am particularly like, there are several people in BattleBots that get a lot of flack and I'm super defensive, and Evan is one of those people. I love Evan to pieces. He's one of the sweetest people in robot combat. And so when something like that happens to the Shred It team, like I was really mad. I mean, I probably would have been upset no matter who it was, but I was just like really not happy with it. I get that a lot of fans were like, well, it was boring. If it's boring, then if you have Discovery Plus, you can fast forward through it, or if you're watching it live, go get some popcorn or something. Like, there are things that you can do if you don't want to watch the match. And you know, like I said, if they were going to stick with a plan, I think it should have been consistent throughout the season and not just like, okay, we're going to do this for this match. And really the other part of that was, I didn't feel like the content to preview the final match was really, I don't think it added any value. Like, I wasn't even half paying attention to that. So like, if you're going to do it, add some value, you know, show like bloopers or like funny team, you know, something that's going to grab people's attention than just like, okay, more stuff about the final match that we've already talked about. You know, I just that was my whole thing, and I hope that it's not something that happens again, because, you know, I get that part of the reason why teams wanted to have all of these matches aired is because, you know, it's important for their sponsors and stuff like that to be visible. But I don't think that it helps from a sponsorship perspective to have something over your match because it's like, this is boring. Like, that's not helpful. So, you know, I hope that it doesn't happen again. And we have a whole couple of weeks for people to think about that and, you know, hopefully not do it again.
Yeah, seriously. It was like, and I mean, it was cool to see Shred It up and running and their weapon was working and they were able to deliver a huge hit that sent Ominous across the box. Like, okay, a large hit is obviously going to affect damage and it's going to happen, but like, let them drive, let them show what their robots are capable of. Like, those are both two very, very powerful machines that can push each other, and both were actively trying to. So let them have their time.
Yes, they weren't just sitting there, you know, they were doing something, maybe not the most exciting. There wasn't damage or fire happening or whatever, but, you know, like, let them finish and do their thing. But, you know, that was another challenge match. Shred It Bro challenged the match. Ominous ended up, you know, coming out on top, and the decision was upheld. You know, it is what it is. The only thing I will say, you know, is don't count Shred It out. Just don't.
Yeah, I actually, like, fun fact, I read someone say that Shred It was the first original challenge in the tapings. So it's the third one we're seeing, but it was the first one that actually happened. So
yeah, because
yeah,
you know, filming out of order, you know, all of that good stuff. So yeah, so there's that, and then we had the Whiplash versus Monsoon main event, which was really exciting. Personally, I thought that should have been the fight of the week. You know, it was really back and forth, and I loved seeing Monsoon being able to kind of keep going. And, you know, it's nice that they have that option where if the bot gets flipped over, then they can run that way and they can just reverse the weapon. I mean, it's perfect. I thought they did a really good job. And personally, in my opinion, like, the judging was so interesting because it was also an appeal situation. Whiplash got the initial judge's decision. They did the appeal, and then it ended up swinging even more in Whiplash's favor, which I was surprised for a number of reasons. So one thing that I always say when I see teams' reactions to a judge's decision, when it's a split decision especially, is that if a team is surprised that they won, I'm always like, well, I would think that the judge's decision would align with them, because most teams would feel like they did win. And so if they feel like they didn't, then they're probably right in what they're looking at. You know, so like when I went back and I watched it, I was like, and I looked at the scorecards. Derek had revised his scorecard and actually made Monsoon win damage 4-1, and then had all of the control points for Whiplash. Whereas the other two judges kind of had it a little bit different, where they gave, you know, a little bit more even in damage points, but they had 2-1 on control and aggression. So I agreed with Derek's assessment of damage, because Monsoon really had like almost no damage. To me, it seemed very like base cosmetic stuff. Whiplash had all of the damage. And control and aggression, I mean, like, Whiplash is obviously a really good control bot, but to me, I didn't see enough there to be like, they get all the control points. You know, to me, I would have had it 2-1 for both of those. So really interesting scoring. I mean, both teams obviously did great. But you know, it's nice to see Whiplash not dip to 0-3.
Yes. Definitely. It was definitely a really, really good match. There was so much back and forth, so much power in those weapons, so many sparks. But I would agree with you as far as it did not seem like Monsoon had a ton of damage. Maybe just from what we could see on TV, like that's maybe not the case, because obviously, you know, TV, you can't really necessarily see every little thing in detail and stuff like that. But yeah, I was super excited to see Whiplash get a win and not have to drop to 0-3. I've always loved that robot. So like, it was really cool to see him, like, his driving is just incredible. And that's like one of the best things about like that whole team. Like, they just get it and they understand like how to take their shots and where to maneuver, and like, so it was really cool. And it's so good to see Monsoon still doing so well, even after like everything at the end of the day. Like, so I think both of their last matches are going to be really, really incredible.
Yes. Should make for an interesting finish. I mean, to be honest, like with the round of 32, if it wasn't for the fact that I had knowledge of, you know, some of that, at this point I would look at what's happened so far and I would be like, I have no idea how that's going to shake out. Like, there's so many different ways that this could go. You know, when you look at the undefeated teams, and some of them have really difficult final matchups, you know, are all, you know, which ones are going to go undefeated. And then you have these teams that have losing records, who's going to come through in that last match and like do enough to get into the tournament. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah, it's like we've already made it like 10 weeks, but there's still so much before it shakes out to that round of 32. Like, there's so many things that could happen. There's so many big matches like up, like that we're gonna see up and coming, and like it will really be interesting. I like try to forget what I know and what I saw, because I'm like, no, just pretend that you never saw any of that. Like, it's like, yeah, just so it'll be really interesting to see like totally how it comes about.
Yes. You know, and now we have a couple week break. AKA everybody make sure next weekend that you watch the March Norwalk.
Exactly.
It's, you know, like what else do you have to do? Just watch. There's gonna be like so many robots. Like I don't even know how they're all going to fit in the pit area, because there's so many robots. So please watch it. There's going to be plenty of BattleBots competitors at that event. Seems
Yeah,
reasonable is
seems
going to be there.
reasonable.
Like,
There seems reasonable. Most is shredded. There's a lot. Some of the Horizon kit, like Alicia's on it. Like, there's gonna be a lot of faces next weekend at March. So like, I'm very lucky that, you know, even though we're taking a break from BattleBots for a couple weeks, I still have a lot of robot fights to see next weekend. So I hope everybody joins into that live stream or comes down to Norwalk to see it.
yes. And speaking of live streams, as I may have like mentioned this before, that I am doing my own live stream during the event, at least for an hour or two. It should be interesting. You know, I'll just be talking about, you know, what's going on the event. But I also, you know, have already offered, and that any builders that want to pop in at any point in time during that can just pop in on the stream, and say whatever. And I know there's already a couple that plan on doing that. So like, it's gonna be fun. So if you have a bunch of monitors or like a bunch of screens to watch stuff on, just have the Norwalk event up on one and then have my live stream on the other, and it's just gonna be a party. So
Definitely, absolutely. Sometimes I wish I could kick back and relax and watch, but I'll be well immersed in the event, running around like a crazy person.
yes, exactly. Yeah, and we'll have a couple weeks off of BattleBots, so I really hope that when it comes back at the end of the month, that it is a much more enjoyable experience for everyone. So we'll see what happens in that next round of fight nights. But yes, so please make sure that you continue to like, subscribe, put things in the comments. If you don't agree with our take on this episode, please share, and I'd be happy to discuss. But we'll go ahead and see you next time on the show, and everybody keep supporting combat robotics.